When people hear the word abuse, they often imagine bruises, shouting, violent arguments. But during 14 years of my relationship, there was no physical abuse. Something else happened to me. Something that broke me down physically and mentally without ever using blunt force. It's called coercive control. In my last video, I shared about how it began, how grooming and idealization made me feel seen and safe. In this video, I want to share the second half of my story, but from a different lens, because what dominated that part of our relationship was coercive control. But I had no idea what it was, or that I was in real danger. So in this video, I will also tell you what coercive control is, how it looks, how it sneaks in, why it is so dangerous, how I eventually left, and what the factors were that helped me leave. To do that, I will use researcher Jane Monckton Smith's 8-stage timeline to show how my marriage gradually progressed to a lethal trap in the middle of Sunday brunches and school runs and everyday life. Because this is how it usually looks. Coercive control explains why so many women are stuck in these relationships when the first blow eventually comes. Did you know that coercive control is the #1 risk factor for femicide? This is the very reason that coercive control is getting criminalized in more and more countries. I'm Emma, a medical doctor and abuse survivor. Let's get into it. I want to tell you a story, but it's not just my story, it's my life. It's years and years of life and events that were confusing, hurtful, scary. By using the coercive control timeline, I get to put some structure into a relationship that made less and less sense to me the longer I was in it. Jane Monckton Smith's timeline describes the stages that eventually, if it reaches the final stage, leads to homicide of the partner. Many abusive relationships never go as far as the last stage, but the potential is there. So I will explain the 8-stage timeline to you, and we will also talk about signs of escalation, so signs that the relationship is moving up the stages, and risk factors for homicide. But the risk factors we will come to a bit later in the video. Before we begin, this information can be triggering to hear. If you think that you may be in danger, reach out to a domestic hotline or to the police if there is immediate danger, threats, or escalation. These patterns are serious and they can be deadly. Another thing to remember is that coercive control, the coercive controller can be male, female, a parent. It can happen in many types of relationships. But in most cases where there is actually a homicide, the perpetrator is a male and the victim is a female. If you want to watch the first part of my video, I will link it here, but also in the description. That video is called Groomed at 15 because I met my partner very early. But this story I want, as I said, focus on the 8-stage timeline. So what I will do is to name the stage and explain it, how it looks like according to the research, and then I will tell you what it looked like for me. Stage number 1, the toxic partner has a history of being violent, controlling, obsessive, jealous, or a history of stalking. In my case, my boyfriend mentioned that he had at one point hit an ex-girlfriend in a fight, but he said that I'm very ashamed of that and I will never ever put my hands on a woman again. He also told me something else that I didn't think of because it was weird, but he told me once that he had followed his mother during the day, like when she was retired, so he wanted to see where she went during the day, and he had followed her in his car. That's not normal behavior, but as with many of these anomalies, we just can't make any sense of it, and I just forgot about it until he started stalking me. And about the event where he had hit his girlfriend, saying that he would never ever do something like that again, I believed him because he never laid a hand on me until 14 years into the relationship. Stage 2 of the coercive control timeline is when the toxic person who has this history meets a potential partner. What characterizes this phase is that the relationship moves a bit too quickly or faster than what is normal. It's a rapid commitment. Declarations of love, they may move in together. Pregnancy or marriage, things like that. In my case, there was no real rapid commitment, and I think it was because of the age difference and the grooming. It took a bit of a different route, but the pattern was still there of the intensity and the push-pull. When I look at my parents' relationship, they married very quickly after meeting each other. They moved in together, and if I remember correctly, they married within half a year. And then I was born the year after. And pretty quickly, 3 siblings followed. So they had a baby every second year or like between 1.5 years to 2 years between. Stage 3 is the bulk of the relationship. This is where the coercive control starts to creep in. And it happens after the partner is committed. When they have a child together, move in together, get married, is when the coercive control typically escalates a lot. For me, before we married, he was controlling in some ways, but I thought that I confused it with care, and some of it I confused with like being a cultural thing or preference. So I was still like a large I was quite awkward for a long part of my youth and even into early adulthood. I had low self-esteem. I was insecure. I didn't really know how to dress, like what fitted me. And he would be very caring, and he would take me out, for example, and help me to choose things when shopping. He would give me advice on what colors suited me and things like that. And he was good at dressing himself, and he did give me good advice. And I felt a bit lucky, because I've heard that most guys don't like to go into the stores, like they want to go out of there quickly. But mine like that, and like we would go in and I would try clothes, and he would want to stay longer than me. I would get tired, and but he really wanted to find something that suited me and that was comfortable. And he would even run, like when I was in the changing clothes inside of the little dress space, he would run out and get me several different ones so that I can try out exactly the right size. And it felt like care. And yeah, he didn't like it that I would hang out with boys. And that was when I thought it was a cultural thing, like in Sweden, boys and girls hang out together, but in his home country, it was more separated between the sexes. And I didn't really have a problem with that. I was quite introverted, and I only had a small circle of friends. And he never, at this time, made any comments that he didn't want me to see them, or the impression or the feeling that I got was that he was very romantic, protective. Like he would pull out the chair in the restaurant and help me with my jacket, and fill up my glass and things like that. When we married, I think the first sign of me getting uncomfortable with the control, it came actually when I was pregnant with the first child. And it was the last semester of med school. I was, like half of the semester, I would study gynecology, and so gynecology is separated into like the gynecology operations, and then the birthing of the baby. Obstetrics, that's the name. And then pediatrics. So that was like the second half. So I will spend some time in surgery, like very seldom assisting, but sometimes like holding some instrument. But usually like standing to learn and to watch. And I would have this horrible, like my blood pressure would fall, so I would get really, really dizzy and almost faint, and I had to drink something, and then I was also struggling with nausea. But I was really wanting to push through and get that second, like the last semester finished. And after my pregnancy started, I couldn't even see any of my friends because I was feeling so bad. So I would only go to university, and then I would go home and just crash in bed and sleep. like maybe I would wake up for a little while in the evening, but I would mostly sleep. But one day, like my best girlfriend at the time, she had asked me to, like, can we please see each other? And I don't remember why. I think she was going somewhere. But it was like, it would be hard to see each other if I didn't manage to do it this day. So I really like gathered my energy, and after that day at the hospital, I went to see her, and we went for a walk, and we talked for a bit. And I came home, and I was completely exhausted. And when I came home, my husband was at home, and he said, we will have some guests coming, they are coming in a while, so you need to prepare some food. And I was so tired, like I was I got stressed and irritated, and I was really, really tired. But I thought, well, okay, so what type of food should I make? And we'll just do anything, but something good. I'm paraphrasing a bit because I don't remember the exact wording, but I remember like parts of the conversation. Then he said, well, they may come or they may not come today. And I said, well, why what type of guests are perhaps coming and perhaps not coming? And then he exploded. So he suddenly got very angry, and I wasn't prepared for it. And started to yell at me for that I was rude, and that I didn't care about him and only focused on my stuff. And when there was something that he needed, I got irritated. And it ended with him kicking me out of the apartment. And then he sent me some very nasty texts that you better wait for me to call you, and if you go to your family's home, then this argument will get much worse. So I was pregnant, exhausted, and then I was sitting. I went to a park. There was a park nearby, and I was crying. I sat there for a long, long while, and I was thinking, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. It didn't feel okay at all. But I was also questioning myself because he got so angry. Like, was I rude? Perhaps I was a bit rude. But anyway, like, who does that and kicks their pregnant wife out of the home? And it took a long time. And then he called me and said that you can come home now. And there were some pizza boxes, like empty pizza boxes on the kitchen table. And he said that they were here, and we ordered pizza, and now they left. And I didn't talk to him. I just went inside the bathroom, and I think I took a shower because I was feeling cold. And that was the first real argument that came like that out of nowhere, and that it was my responsibility to fix food for these guests. But after that, the relationship turned, like he probably turned back to sweet again. Eventually, I did graduate, and he took me to a trip to the UK. We were there for a month, and he was really sweet during that vacation. And there was a long time in our relationship there during the first pregnancy, and when our son was born, that was good. He was very present, interested, and like I could, he would help me and hold the baby and cuddle the baby. And when I was bathing the baby, he would be there and help me. So it really felt like we were a family. And it was like that for like up until like the first year. And then I got pregnant with our second child around like when I got pregnant when our son was 1 year old. And during that pregnancy, so there's still not much coercive control going on, and he's still helping me out with the first child. There were one more incident when he came home and I had not done the dishes, and he was irritated because he had called me and I didn't answer, and he was worried that something may have happened to me because I usually didn't leave a big mess. But I figured that was also a protective thing. My son had been screaming a lot, so I went for a walk, and then I couldn't hear the phone. So yeah, other than that, there was nothing happening. Like things seemed fine. And at this point, my husband was unemployed since not very, like 2-3 years. Well, that's long, but he was still like he sold his company, and he was saying that he will spend some time with us while the children are small, and he will look into buying something new for himself. But then, like when our relationship really turned bad was, well, during the second pregnancy, he started to withdraw. So he would want to go out during the days, like run some errands and not spend much time with us. Well, like we wouldn't be together like we used to. And I was very concerned. I remember asking him, like, what's wrong and why, like, is something wrong? Can we talk about it? Why are you so distant? It felt like after all those years when, so this is like 12, 13 years into the relationship. And we always, as I thought, we were always pretty close. But now he didn't want to talk and was doing stuff by himself. And I thought that perhaps he is like going through something he doesn't want to tell me, or perhaps it's me. I was gaining a lot of weight with the second pregnancy. Perhaps he's not attracted to me. And I also felt like I love my children. I love my baby, but I was always like holding a baby or having a baby in my belly. So perhaps that's like we can't even spend any time together. But there were still like times where we would sit and talk, and especially in the evenings, like when my son when he slept, then we would I would prepare something to eat, and we would light some candles and sit in the kitchen a bit and talk. And I felt like we were close then. But those moments happened like more seldom as time went on, and the pregnancy got heavy, and then in August 2016, our daughter was born. And things were still, it felt like a bit like the ideal family, like we had the cute kids and the baby. And well, one thing that was quite hard during this, like after we came home from the hospital, he didn't stay at home to help me. He continued to go out by himself. Like with the first baby, he was at home helping me. But now he was distant and he had things to do, but he couldn't tell me everything. And he was dealing with something on his own. So he wasn't there to help me. And it was really, really difficult to care for two kids, a newborn baby and the older one being a year and 9 months. And the oldest, like he wasn't at preschool, so he was home with me. And it was really, really tough. And I started to get irritated because I needed his help. And usually, like it would come out as me getting really, really tired and fed up and then saying something. So I wasn't very good at asking for help. I would try to handle it, and then like after having not slept all day, then I would say, I really need your help. Like, why are you not staying and helping me? And then he would accuse me of not being able to handle adult conversations properly. Like, this is something that you should have told me yesterday. Like when we were sitting eating, like when the kids are asleep, then you can tell me that you need some help. Now I've already planned something, so I can't just drop it. And then you always talk with me when you are irritated, so you are creating an argument. And then he would get irritated and I wouldn't get help. And on top of that, I would feel guilty for having created an argument. But this was perhaps still not a lot of clear-cut coercive control, even though in a way it's forcing me to be tied up with the kids. So I was always busy with them. So in that way, he would know what I was doing. And the thing about wanting me to say things in a certain way, that's also coercive control. So when I spoke to him, I had to say it nicely. With the economy, at this point, there was no, well, we didn't have that good. We weren't that well off financially. But if I bought something, there was no arguing about it. But then when our daughter was 3 months old, he disappeared. He said that he was going to visit a friend in another part of Sweden. But then he didn't respond on his phone. And when I contacted the friend, he wasn't there. And I think he was gone for 3 days and I never got an explanation. And that really hurt me. I suspected that he was cheating. I wanted us to talk through this. I wanted him to tell me where he had been, and he refused to. And I felt that I couldn't trust him anymore. So we had a lot of arguments, or me wanting to talk, him getting irritated, and then it would blow up. So he would storm off very angry, and I would cry and say, "Please stay. I didn't mean to. I love you." And then, but I still had this hurt, and I didn't trust him, and I was also angry for him having probably betrayed me. So eventually, this led to, like, about half a year later, or perhaps a bit earlier. I'm not sure about the month, but our daughter was still young, like less than a year. During one of those fights, I became so angry that I tried to kick him out. And very quickly, it escalated. So he took a knife from the kitchen, like one of those big cutting knives, and he put it to my stomach. He held it against my stomach. He didn't hurt me. And then he let go of the knife and lay down on the floor and cried, and said, during this argument, he also punched me in the eye. So I had a black eye, and I was in shock. And our kids were sleeping in the bedroom. So what happened here, if we go according to the eight-stage homicide scale, is that from being in stage 3, where there is just control, and there was control because he had the final say in everything, and he was the one who could decide, well, I'm going out, and could leave me with the kids. And he wanted me to not spend any time with other males, which I did not. He was controlling what I wore, but I thought it was a sort of kind, because I didn't really have that sense of dressing. He did control the economy, but since I was making, I didn't have an income, so that was just a relief. He did try to punish me if I spoke to him in a certain way, so he was controlling how I spoke and how I acted. But that is stage 3. And the coercive control itself, it can be on a scale, so it can be, like as I described now, on this level, but it can also intensify and cover more areas and be more strict. And that happened later in our relationship, as you will see. But stage 4 in the timeline is a trigger. Something happens that makes the abuser feel that they are losing control. The most common trigger is separation or threat of separation, talk of separation. But it can also be the abuser having a health crisis, losing their job, or something else that just shifts the power dynamic. And after stage 4 comes escalation of abuse. So perhaps, I tried to kick him out here, as you hear, that was a certain threat of separation. But during the months previously, perhaps his control was a bit threatened because I was questioning him and I was not happy with the answers. Well, anyway, during this fight, it suddenly escalated. So the abuse escalated. He threatened me with a knife. He punched me in the eye. And this shocked me so much that I was, well, first of all, I was in the acute, I was trembling and walking around, like between the bathroom, looking in the mirror, and then like locking the door and then going out to the living room, and just, I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. Afterwards, for several weeks, I was in this state of feeling like things were unreal. So my whole world shook, and I just withdrew within myself, and didn't try to. I think we spoke about some ordinary things, but I was very shut down emotionally and just doing the routines. But this led up to me anyway. Like I thought that this happened, this intense argument happened because we have a pattern of arguing that is unhealthy. I have a problem with expressing myself calmly. I would usually, like if I was hurt, I started to cry, and then he got irritated and became angry, and then he would want to leave and I would become very upset. So I thought that our whole dynamic is very unhealthy, and that's what happened. So the fight escalated because we don't have a proper way of solving our issues. And that's what he also accused me of. So you can't have an adult conversation. You're always crying. And I was crying whenever something happened. And whenever we had a fight, he accused me of being the one that caused it because I had spoken rudely or something like that. So, and I thought about leaving him at this point, but then I thought that, first of all, I was kind of stuck. I had 2 small kids and no income. And then I thought, well, before this happened, we had 14 years that were good. So he can't be an abusive man because he has never hurt me before. And that's not what I thought that abuse looked like. And then I thought about my kids. So should I just throw away this relationship that was good before I got so tired from the kids and starting to lose control over, it was also with 2 kids, it was difficult for me to handle by myself. Before that, I was always very independent, I took care of everything. And there was never an argument about needing help because I never needed help. I never asked for help. So I thought that something had happened there, when I needed help and I wasn't able to express it. So I need to give it another chance. I need to learn how to de-escalate a fight, how to express myself without crying. I need to change things. And then we won't have these escalations, and that could give our relationship a chance. And I felt that it's fair to give it a chance. We have 2 kids. So during the years that followed, I learned how to regulate my own emotions. I learned how to become a single married mother. I handled everything. I learned how to make time to rest, like go and rest when the kids slept. And I learned to not expect anything from him. I tried everything I could think of to make things between us better. And seemingly that worked, because things became calmer again. He was much nicer to me. We started to be able to do things again as a family. And there was no violent fights, because I would de-escalate them or leave. I would learn to walk away from fights. It was not that easy. It's very hard to learn, but I was struggling with that. And I kept a journal. I wrote in it almost every day. I don't know if you can see it, but I still have them up there. Like it's a stash of journals from these years. Writing about like, how did it go today? What was good? What was like, how can I improve? And working on myself. This means that our relationship went back into stage 3. So it was calm. It was just the coercive, controlling relationship. He left me with a lot of responsibility. He made the decisions about things. And at this time, he started to tell me to do different things like a certain way. So, like, for example, we didn't have a dishwasher there. I should wash it by hand, and then I should dry it. So it shouldn't be left. The dishes shouldn't be left on the counter. But sometimes he would also help me. So we would still do things together when he was there. He would help me with the dishes or like drying them. So it felt like these things that he was saying, he was still contributing. And also he had a bit of a OCD tendency. I thought, like in his wardrobe, he put his clothes just like that, and he always liked things to be like a certain way. So I thought that these things that he, like the rules, they're just his OCD. So, it looks nice. Like he likes to have it neat at home, and I didn't really know what I liked. So I guess I liked what he liked. And I tried to make him happy. And then there was another shift, like in the relationship, because we moved to another town after I got my medical license. We moved to another town. Now, there were some incidences before that, actually, with the phone. So he started to be irritated at me if I looked at the phone when I was with the kids, when I was always with the kids. So, even if it was concerning work, he got very irritated if I would pick up my phone. And there were some arguments about that. So that was a new thing, him trying to control what I was doing during the day. Like, you need to focus on the kids. That's why you're home. And that also seemed to me like, well, he just wants the best for the kids. Like, probably he is right. It's just that it's very, very difficult to be an adult and only spend time with your kids around the clock. And he wasn't there very often, so I really felt like I was missing speaking to adults. Like, if I couldn't use my phone when my kids were awake, then I couldn't call my friends. And if I used it when they were asleep, first of all, I was tired. But second of all, he was home then. And they were like, it's not a good time to call your friends in the night, in the evening. So I got very isolated during this time. Even though I was working. Yeah, and he also started to be irritated if I invited someone home. So there was only a few people that he would want to have in our home. And I also thought that, he told me that it's because like our home doesn't really, like it doesn't fit, it doesn't work to have guests here, because we had I won't go into that, but we had to get rid of our sofa, so it was not ideal for guests. So I thought that there was an explanation for his behavior. And then we moved to another town, and in this apartment is when it really escalated. First of all, I became responsible for everything that had to do. So I was already responsible for everything to do with the kids. But he usually picked them up and dropped them off at preschool or school because he was unemployed. And but when we moved, before we moved, like half a year earlier, he had convinced me that I should take out a loan and buy an apartment in that town that we lived in, because it would be a good investment, because he didn't have a job yet, and perhaps he could just renovate this apartment and we can rent it out for to get some money from there, so it could be a good investment. And I agreed, and I thought that perhaps he obviously need to do something. He can't just be unemployed. So if I can help him with that, that would be a good thing. And after all, he supported me when I was going through med school, so it seems fair. So we did that. But then when we moved, he suggested that we should move. But then when we moved, he said that I will spend a lot of time in this apartment because I'm going to renovate it. And it became a lot of time in that apartment. So he was barely, in the beginning especially, he was not at home very much. I think he was gone. He was gone, and then he came home during the weekend, and then he went to the apartment again. So it was like he had a separate life. And during that time, I became responsible for everything. So picking and leaving the kids, the grocery shopping. I was already doing all the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the dishes, all the small things that he had at least helped me with before. They came to my plate during that time. And he started to complain a lot about how I did things and tell me how I should do things. And very detailed. So if you do this, then you should you should do it in this order, and you should, if you make food, then you shouldn't, you should only put this much salt in, even things that he didn't know very well, he would advise me about. He would look through the counters and decide that, we can't have certain food, we should never have any milk, sugar, wheat, white wheat, that's unhealthy. And he was on this health campaign for himself, so I thought that it was just that, but it was really annoying and hard, and I had to come up with new recipes. And at the same time, I was working full-time, and a lot of my salary was going to this apartment, and he had control over my bank account. And this was a residue from when the time that I was on parental leave, he was in control of the finances. So he still wanted to be in control of the finances when I started to work. And it seemed a bit selfish to not let him do that, because he had helped me when I was on the parental leave, even though perhaps that's not really the right thinking, because it was his children and I was taking care of them. But it felt like a betrayal if I would ask him to not do that. And also it was like this, he talked a lot about how he wanted to be a good father and how it was a main goal of his to be a good husband. And I thought that, well, he's trying to be that, like by taking care of the finances and by butting into all the things that I'm doing at home and telling me how to do things. That's his way of feeling important. Then I also discovered that I had he was tracking my phone with the Find My iPhone app. And I didn't track his phone, so I didn't know where he was, but I figured that, well, perhaps he's really insecure, like he wants to know where I am when he's not here. But it felt a bit weird. And he also had, because he was the one that was buying everything, he was the one who bought my phone and who set it up and who set up the passwords and the email accounts for me. So he had all my passwords, and he would also use my phone to log into the bank account to check the balance and stuff. So he would look into my phone. And even though I didn't notice it, there were a lot of coercive control sneaking in. So, as I explain, I have explanations for all the dumb thing that he made me do. But in reality, my life had become really limited. I was working full time, and before work, I had to get up, fix breakfast, fix the things that the kids were going to have with them to school that day. Then I would take them to school. Then I would go to work. Then I would work a full day, and then I would pick them up. Then I would go home. Sometimes we would have to grocery shop on the way, but most often no. And then I would be busy with dinner, preparing the meals for him because he couldn't cook, so I should prepare his meals. I would do dishes. I would do chores at home. Then I would read the kids a bedtime story. Or when they got a bit older, we also did homework before that. And then brush the teeth, bedtime story, and then go to bed. And that was my days, the normal every days. And then in the weekends, on Sundays, I always prepared the bulk of the meals for the week, because I didn't have time to do that when we came home, as I worked full time. So I did stews and soups and meat sauce and things. I prepared that on Sundays and put it in order in the fridge. And on Saturday, my husband told me that on Saturday you should take the kids to the swimming hall, the bathhouse, because they need to learn to swim. So that's a good thing if you go there with them. And of course that is a good thing. But he also bought us for my money the year membership card to be able to go there on Saturdays. So that's the routine. It was very strict routine, and I was incredibly tired. And he was still, after it having been calm between us for a while, he started to escalate, and I'm not sure why, but the bad behavior escalated. And I was also fighting back a bit because he was demanding things that I couldn't do. And he was saying like, yeah, you should sit down with the kids every Sunday and you should go through some behavior, like how they should behave, and you should do a little lesson with them at home, and you should put a schedule for them on the wall, like so that they see, because like he would blame his parenting mistakes on me. So they got a bit older and he couldn't handle them properly. Like he would, for example, give in if they nagged him, then he would give in and give them an ice cream. And then they would nag him even more the next day, and then he would get angry. So he didn't know how to behave with the kids. And then he would blame me. He said, well, you haven't taught them how they should act. And if you had a schedule, like if you were a bit more structured, then they would know what the rules were, and like we wouldn't have these issues. And I told him, so, well, I don't have those issues. It's only you who have them. And then he got angry, like, because I was rude. But also I didn't have, like, I knew that I couldn't make the kids behave better when he himself was sabotaging that by refusing to raise them. But the thing was that I was also at my limit, so I didn't have any energy. I was struggling with burnout. At this point, I was often like crashing into bed when the kids were asleep. And my body was doing something weird. So I think that my body was actually saying no to him. Like, even though I tried to force myself to go up, like in the evening, I should go up and be with him for a while. Like, how is our relationship going to be good if I never spend any time with him? But then I would just like, I would get this feeling that I will just go to sleep. And I was really tired, but I think that my body knew, like my body didn't want to be around him. I was feeling anxious and tense and unhappy around him. Like when he wasn't there, it was much better. So usually he would come home late at night, like late in the evening when I was reading story for the kids, or precisely after. And I would feel the shift in tension in the home when he was home. It was so much calmer and peaceful when he wasn't there. So I was starting to, well, I wasn't in love with him anymore. He was just, like, I was just stuck with him because I was married to him and we had kids, and that was the right thing to do. To, like, I couldn't think of a reason to get rid of him. But I was very used to him as well. Like, I had been with him since 15. So I think that he sensed that I was withdrawing, and also that I would say to him, I don't have any energy to do the schedules and all the things that you are suggesting. When should I do that? Like, if you take a look at my schedule for the week, if you think that I should do that, then we have to take something else off the schedule. I'm not capable of doing that. And he would get angry because I said, I can't. You should never say you can't, because that means that you're teaching your brain to be lazy. Like, you are saying to yourself that you can't, when in reality, if you had the if you had the attitude that you can do it, then you would be able to. So like, I was lazy, and yeah, he had so many negative things to say about me. In the end, I was overweight and like, not a very good mother, and yeah, the criticisms just increased. And I started to like walk away. When he would say something mean, I would walk away and like not want to argue. So I think that he sensed that he was losing control. So, and our relationship shifted again into phase 5, the escalation. So he started to behave more erratic. He would become angry over something really, really small and blame me for it. And he would even do it in front of the kids now. So from having never argued in front of them, the last 2 years of our relationship, he started to talk down to me in front of them. Our son even said to him once, like, "Daddy, why are you saying such mean things to mommy?" And he also, like my son, he was the oldest, but he also started to notice that, why are you doing everything and Daddy's not doing anything at all? Like, don't you feel that it's unfair? And he said things like that, and I tried to I don't know. I did not complain about his father. And like at that point, I thought that it's not good for me to complain about him. But so I said something like, well, he is also helping me with some things, and you know that he's busy with that apartment. And so I tried to avoid the topic. But when my kids even started to notice this, that like made me think. Yeah, and as I said, he would get angry in front of the kids, and then I would tell him, like, if you are angry, then you leave. So I would protect them. I would not let him rage when they were like awake. And one time he threw a bowl in the living room. This was at the evening when I think I walked away from another fight. Then he threw a bowl on the wall, so it fractured. And then I told him, like, if you're going to do that, you can't stay here. You have to leave. So I won't sleep with you. I won't sleep in the same home with you. I don't feel safe. You have to leave. So I kicked him out, and I did that a few times. Like, he disappeared for a few days to the other town, another apartment, but then he would show up again. But he started to become meaner. But in the end of our relationship, he started, like, it shifted a bit. And I'm pretty sure that we moved into stage 6. Because stage 6 is the abusive partner coming to the conclusion that he will end the life of his partner. And the thinking here is things like, if I can't have you, then no one can. You ruined my life. She deserves it. Like, it's a kind of revenge thing. But why I think that why I'm saying that I think we moved into stage 6 is that it's usually characterized by a semi-calm. So the argument stops. And it did in our case for a while. Like, we were moving a bit back and forth, I think. But he started to talk about death, about being together forever, and that I was his wife and that we should never separate. We would be together for the rest of our lives. And he started to tell me things like, I'm a failure and I invested into you, but now you are not treating me properly. And sometimes he would say something like, bitter things. And like this period, I started to observe him because I noticed that something was really off. He talked about ending his own life. Like these things came increasingly often. Then, like, and in one fight, I think that he said that I struggle with dark thoughts. And in one fight, he said that sometimes I think that I should just burn everything down. He talked about, like, if we don't get things to work out with our marriage, there is no use of us having a family. And he talked about Hitler. He said that he was like a good leader, and he did the right thing when he ended the life of everyone in the bunker, because his enemies should not see him fail, like they shouldn't see him weak. And he started to talk about having enemies himself. So there were some very, very scary things that he said. And during this time, as I said, I was observing him. Like, now I really noticed that something was off. You have to give me that. So I started to observe him. Like, I went into this clinical lens because I have been like in the psychiatric wards and the psychiatric emergency. So I thought that perhaps he's suicidal. And I was trying to, like, I even tried to make him go and seek care, but he wouldn't. But I thought that I need to know what he is thinking, like what is going on inside his head. So I stopped. Like, if he said something very weird or off, I wouldn't say, no, don't say that, that's horrible. I would just say, that's an interesting thought. Or I would just listen. Oh, like, do you really think that? And I would, like, encourage him softly to continue on his train of thought. And those were very dark thoughts. This was the period where I started to become afraid. I realized that we might actually be in danger. I still didn't recognize that it was coercive control, and I didn't know this timeline, but I recognized that he was mentally unstable, and he had a lot of risk factors, both for suicide and extended suicide, which means that you take someone else with you. So that's what I was afraid of. As I said, I tried to get him to seek out help, but he refused. And I also knew that he was narcissistic, so I thought that part of his behavior, or a lot of his behavior, is because of that. Like, you can't see anything from another person's perspective. He's, like, completely consumed by himself. He was struggling with anxiety. And I thought that perhaps this unemployment and everything, like, perhaps he's going through a collapse and then they can become suicidal. So I thought that, I couldn't explain everything, but I thought that something like that could be going on. But I realized that we were in danger. And I was also afraid of leaving him because I felt that I was the last thing that was keeping him together. He had at this point, like, made enemies everywhere. Like, as he said, he had unfriended his friends and his family. Like, he didn't have anyone to hang out with. He didn't have a job. Like, all those promises or dreams about starting something or fixing something, it never amounted to anything. He was getting older. He was diagnosed with, like, one condition. like, he didn't have anything except me, like allowing him to use my money. He was using me also as a social status thing, like telling people that his wife was a doctor, that he had, like in his culture, having a family and children is an important thing. So I was afraid, like, if he's this unstable while I'm here, what will happen if I walk away? And when I am here, at least I can have keep an eye on him and see when things get worse or try to prevent them. And if he's not here, then I won't know what happens. But eventually, like, living with him became very hard, and I thought that we need to do something. I can't continue like this, and I was also scared for my kids. So one evening in August, I asked him to talk with him. It was in the evening after the kids were asleep, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, and I told him that I find it really difficult that we have been having all these arguments, and you don't seem very happy. You're criticizing me a lot, and I'm very tired from work and from everything, and I think that perhaps we should separate for a while. Not divorce, just separate. And my thinking was that he was already spending a lot of time in this other apartment, so he might just move there, and I can live here, and then we can see each other every now and then, like in a peaceful way, but not live together. But I didn't have, like, I wasn't able to finish that thought, because he rose up from his chair, and then he went around the table, and before I could get up from my chair, he had a knife, like he took a knife again from the kitchen, and like a sharp one, nasty one, and pointed it against my stomach again. And this time, I am very sure that he was, because I could see in his eyes that he was very determined. I thought that he was going to do it, or that he was just, taking the breath before he was going to do it. So I immediately ate my words, or said, no, I don't mean that. I was just saying that I'm a bit tired and I don't know what to do to make you happy and things like that. And then he put the knife away. But after that, something shifted in me, because before this, as I told you, for years I had been trying to change the way we interacted, trying to make things work. I was hoping that eventually things could get better or acceptable, at least. And I also had these two images of him in my mind. So the nice guy, the guy that was so attentive and did things for me, and who was a good father. And then I had this guy that it was almost like he was two people, and I couldn't make it fit. Like, I couldn't understand. Before this, we had arguments, but it had been like in the heat of the moment, he had said something or done something. But now we were not arguing. I was just calmly saying that I was not able to, I wasn't able to continue with all the fights like he was starting. And then he he was planning to harm me. So I couldn't make it fit. And it was a few months where I was just blocked in a way, like I couldn't make sense of it. I stopped journaling and I stopped writing all the, like, stopped working on the relationship completely. I just go to work and take care of my kids and go to bed, and felt hopeless and stuck, and like I was escaping a lot into sleep. So while the kids were awake, I could pretend that everything was fine, and then he didn't come home, or he came home very late. But in November, so 3 months later, after having gained a lot of weight, so I think I didn't change a lot the way I was eating, but my body was just protesting. And then he did something that made me realize that no, even the kind things, he's doing it on like it's manipulation, all of it. And then everything clicked. I understood all the things that I have been wondering about. It's all manipulation. And then I left. But before I left, I did have this sense of something terrible is going to happen. Something is off, something is going to happen. So I had this increasing sense of dread. And he was very cold. And I think that we were at this point at stage 7, which is the planning stage. Jane Monckton Smith says that this is characterized by increasing menace and the victim having a sense of this sense of doom, and I really had that. So I can't be sure, but I think my intuition tells me that if I would have stayed with him, he would have harmed us. So that's like feeling built. Like the last thing that kept me there was still like pitying him a bit and not being able to make sense of everything. But when things clicked into place, like it's manipulation, he's using me, he's abusing me, and he wants to harm me, then I left. So there was nothing holding me back then. And stage 8, as I said, it's the final stage where the violent act, the homicide or attempted homicide, or homicide-suicide, or coerced suicide, some of those events happen, and the aim is to end the victim's life. Risks of things escalating to that point is a recent separation, the man being unemployed, substance abuse, him having access to a weapon, if he had made threats to harm you or harm your kids or harm your animals. And the more control that the partner has over the life of the victim, the higher the risk. Yeah, and if he's talking about suicide, that is also a risk factor. And if he has ever put his hands on your throat, like strangulation, that's also a major risk factor. But I was able to leave, and we managed to get out of that situation unharmed. So I will tell you the things that I think enabled me to leave. My anger helped me to protect me, to not get in contact with these, because I was still trauma-bonded. I still pitied him, and I still had a very hard time not doing what he wanted. I was fawning, I was trauma-bonded, but my anger helped protect me. Then it was that I had some education, not about this coercive control, but about a narcissistic personality disorder. I knew about no contact, and I implemented that. And I had been observing him, and I had for years been using the escalation techniques, like not engaging, and I was continuing to do that while he emailed bombed me and text bombed me and called everyone I knew. So I knew that he was going to be out of control, and I didn't react emotionally. Yeah, and it was the anger, and it was the realization that I have to protect my kids. As I said, I tried to disconnect from pitying him. I wasn't completely successful, but eventually I got a lawyer and evicted him from this apartment and forced a sale. So I tried to get back as much of the assets as I could. And that was a very good thing, even though he was playing nice at this time, trying to get me to allow him to have more. I did not buy it. If I had tried to be fair or tried to negotiate or try to help him, then he would have used those resources to haunt us. Haunt us, yes, that's the word. Hunt us. Yeah, because that's what he did eventually. I also saved all the evidences from the emails and texts and calls and so on. So I could eventually show that to the police. And I think that my education helped me, even though my mind was, I had been traumatized and my memories were like not cohesive and so on. I still was able to express myself, I think, at least so that you can understand me. And I also knew the value, like when you go to the doctor, and if you tell the doctor that, well, I have a headache, and then I have a stomach ache, and then I have a dry skin, and then I have, like, if you tell them all the symptoms, and you tell them all the thoughts process, like, I thought that perhaps this could help, and then I tried to take that supplement, and this did, like, if you tell them everything, the story will be so fluffy that it is hard for the doctor to help you. So before you go there, you have to sort of sort out for yourself. Okay, so what is my problem? Like, what is... And I know that like people are irritated because many doctors are saying that you should only bring one problem. That's not what I mean. And I actually let my patients talk and say several things. But before you go there, you can sort things out that is not relevant. So if you notice that your skin was dry when you were at work yesterday, and then, you know, that is not relevant. You can shorten it so that there is no information overload, because people take you less seriously when you do that. So I was at least able to tell the story to the police and tell them, like, the factors that I knew that are risk factors. I tell them that I had seen this, it had escalated, I was afraid. You know, these are the main points that the police need to know. They don't need to know all the details about all the fights or what he said and what he sent, if you know, if you get my point. So I was able to be a bit to the point, and I was able to express myself. I think that helped me to get them to take me seriously, and for me to get the protective identity restraining order. I was able to move. Well, I had some family in that area, and I was able to get help living with them for 5 weeks, and then I was able to move to another town, get a new job. get an apartment there. And I think that part of why I was able to do that was my education. It opens up some doors when you tell people that you're educated. And so it simplified things for me. That was the things that I had in my corner that made it easier. And I don't think that if you don't have these things, like it's not possible to leave. That's not what I'm saying. Everyone has their own pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses. But I'm just sharing what helped me to escape. Yes, and a major one was that I refused to see him alone, because he tried several times to meet me alone or tried to get into our home after the separation. He stalked us. And that's like a major risk factor. I don't know if you ever read like in the newspapers about femicides, then it's quite common that they have met up with the guy after the separation to talk things out. Or she was meeting him to talk about separation. That's like a common theme that you will see. It's not a good idea to meet these men alone. And another thing that I am sure helped me was God. Why do I say that? Well, I have always, I have believed in God for many years, and I prayed intensely during this time to get guidance. And on the day that I left, yes, I saw something, or I understood something that made me realize that it was manipulation. But it was also this feeling, that like a peaceful feeling that I got while praying, that just leave. And it was a very good time. Like, it worked out really well. Things worked out. Even though it was messy, it worked out. And sometimes, like some instances, it worked out against all odds. And it worked out in the exact timing. And I also got help that I didn't expect at the right time. And I even got some dreams in warnings. If you want to know more about that story, I will, in the end here, I will link a video that was about dreams and intuition and how that saved me. I am very aware that how lucky we were to escape from that dangerous situation that we were in unharmed. I was able to do that because at this point in time, these patterns are recognized to be dangerous. I survived because of years of research, because of thousands of women getting harmed, not being able to escape, but people fighting to make this information public, available. But still, it is not known enough. It is still not in every home, this information about coercive control and how dangerous it can be. It needs to be there, just as we teach our children stranger danger. We need to teach them about coercive control and talk about this pattern so that it becomes common knowledge. Because unlike the old myths where women who get abused because they choose abusive men, and then they don't walk away after the first blow. In that story, the first blow happens pretty early, not after 14 years, when you're stuck, when you have kids, when you have no financial means to get away. And then the other myth that women are killed by their partners in an argument that gets out of hand, while in reality, most of them follow this timeline. Most of them are planned out. And that's very scary, but in a way it's also hopeful, because it means that many of these murders are preventable if the information is known, and if the women have the opportunity to get away. We need to invest in like the women's shelters and all the resources that a woman needs to be able to escape safely. And then there's also the issue of children being forced to spend time with these abusive, controlling fathers. And in some instances, the children are harmed physically. I think in most instances, they are harmed mentally by being close to these men. It's not a clear-cut picture. It's not black and white. Sometimes the controller is a woman, and the abuser is a woman, and she is lying about her ex, saying that he is the abusive one, trying to get custody and things like that. So it's not always easy, but at least the family court systems need to be aware of the patterns of coercive control. And if you can show the evidence of the partner having stalked you, threatened you, harmed you, abused you, then it is very difficult to hear when many of the family courts still believe that, well, that was then and now is now. Because these coercive controllers, they don't stop. It's usually a pattern that continues, and it is deadly. So if someone you know ever talks about these patterns and coercive control, name it. Tell them that that sounds like coercive control. Have you heard about the 8-stage timeline? Tell them about Jane Monckton Smith's work. She has a lecture, a TED talk that goes through the stages. It's quite short. I would recommend that you take a look at it. Well, this was a long video. On Friday, we will speak about mirroring empathy, and I think that will be an interesting one. I'm Emma, holding up a light over the bridge. Thank you for listening in. See you in the next video.